If you were to take a closer look at my wall of baits, you would notice that I have a huge section just filled with lipless crankbaits. In fact, I would guess that I have more lipless crankbait hard baits than any other hard bait on this wall. And that should tell you something. You know, lipless crankbaits are one of the most versatile baits that you can fish with. You can fish in a foot of water with them. You can fish in 60 feet of water with them. And there are so many different ways that you can fish these baits. And that's what we're going to discuss today. So we're now in November, mid-November. It's getting colder. We've had a lot of cold weather in the last 2 weeks here in Pennsylvania, and the water's cooling down. And now is another time where the lipless crankbait becomes a very good bait to throw. And there's a lot of different types of lipless crankbaits. There's different ways you can fish these baits. Some are well suited for certain techniques. Others are suited for other techniques. So today we're going to talk about some of the different ways you can fish these lipless crankbaits. And then I'm going to take 5. I probably have 20 different brands here, maybe more. I have a ton of different brands of lipless crankbaits. A lot of them have their time and place. But I'm going to take 5 of some of the best known ones. And we'll talk about those a little more specifically. And then I'm going to mention a 6th one that's new that I haven't really used yet. I've tested it, but I haven't really used it out in the field. We'll talk about that a little bit as well. So how do we fish these things? Well, you know, one way that a lot of people don't know about is to throw it out there, and I'll find a shallow flat, a rocky shallow flat, and we're talking 8 feet deep or less, generally 4 feet and less. And if you have this rocky bottom, you'd be surprised how you can retrieve this bait right on the bottom and it won't hang up. And part of that is because of the angle of the bait, where the line tie is. You know, you would think it would get hung up. There's no bill like a regular crankbait to keep those hooks away from the bottom. But because of the angle of the bait, you can actually drag this along the bottom. And it's one of the best ways to throw a lipless crankbait when that situation calls for it. I like to drag it over rocky bottoms. You can kind of fish it real slow and just drag it along the bottom, and it just bumps along, and it just gives the fish a different look. It's not as wide as a crankbait. It's got that narrow, very narrow profile to it, so the fish really doesn't get a good look at it. Looks like a crayfish going through the water, bouncing along the bottom. And I've caught some really nice fish over the years doing that. Now, if there's a lot of debris on the bottom, it won't work. But if you have good solid rock or a shell bottom, like zebra mussel shells, then this is something that you can do and catch a lot of fish doing it. One of the ways I like to do this is to find a hump that comes up in shallower water, and I'll just drag it along the bottom, stop and go, and that is a really good presentation for smallmouth bass and largemouth and spotted bass as well. Another way I really like to fish lipless crankbaits is where we have a lot of weeds. I like to get them near and around the edges of weeds. One of the things is to have that lipless crankbait just touch or tip some of the weeds, and then if it gets hung a little bit, you just rip it out. You just pull your rod real hard, a real hard snap of the rod rips it out, and it makes it go forward, and then it drops again if you don't reel, and that's oftentimes when you'll get smashed. One of the things that you'll notice if you fish lipless crankbaits is that the strikes are violent on this. Usually it's the kind of strike that I really like. It's a solid strike where the fish just goes after it, and it's a violent reaction strike in most cases, which makes it that much more fun to fish when that bite is on. But I like to throw this in weeds, along the edges of points where there's weeds, or inside weed lines, outside weed lines, over the tops of weeds. The idea is to let the bait tick the weeds, touch the weeds, get a little stuck in them, rip it out, and then just continue that retrieve. Excellent way to fish a lipless crankbait, and it catches a lot of big fish. Some of my most memorable days catching fish have been with lipless crankbaits because of this. You can fish a lipless crankbait just the way you would a jig too. You can throw it out there, just let it go to the bottom. You can hop it slowly. You can hop it up off the bottom. You can just work it just the way you would a jig. You know, just making it small hops along the bottom. Or you could stroke it. You can just rip it up real fast, where it comes up off the bottom and then comes right back down like you would stroke a jig. You do the same thing with the lipless crankbait. Another great way to fish it. One of the ways I like to fish it is to rip the lipless crankbait. I'll throw it out there, let it go to the bottom, and then I'll pull my rod sideways quickly. I'll snap it sideways real quick, And what that does is that the lipless crankbait goes this way forward, and then you quickly reel up the slack, you let it go down, hit the bottom again, and you do that rip again. So I call it ripping a lipless crankbait. And that retrieve where you rip it across the bottom, catch up on the line and let it fall again, that generates some really good strikes for me, and it's one of my favorite ways to fish a lipless crankbait. And you could fish that, down to 20 feet, 25 feet, depending on which lipless crankbait you choose. Another way that you can fish a lipless crankbait, especially in real cold water, is just to do like a slow roll with it. You throw it out there, you let it get down to the bottom, and then you just slowly reel it back just over the bottom. Every now and then you stop it and let it go back down. And then again, you pick up that pace of real slow rolling of the lipless crank. You can also do the same thing with a medium speed. You throw it out there, and now you're doing it at a more medium pace. And then you can make that a fast pace where you're reeling it very, very fast to get that reaction strike. The one I like the best of these, where you're just retrieving the bait, is the erratic retrieve, where you're reeling the handle, turn, stop. Turn, stop. You're trying to make this thing look real erratic, where it's going fast and all of a sudden it hesitates, goes fast, hesitates. That is a really good way to fish a lipless crankbait, and the bites that you get on that are always some of the best, some of the most memorable. Okay, so let's talk about some of the different types. So one of the ones that's best known and might have really started the craze is the Bill Lewis rattle trap. Still a very good lipless crankbait today. I have two sizes here. I think this is a 1/2 ounce and then the larger 3/4 ounce. This one is a bait that is good in shallow water, shallow to up to maybe 8 feet. Usually when you get beyond that depth, there are better choices because this bait just has a slower fall than some of the others. But this is a fish catcher. It has rattles that attract the fish, and that's another thing. All these lipless crankbaits, most of them have rattles in them. Some do not, but the ones that do, they have different sounds and different profiles and different vibrations. So you kind of almost have to experiment to see what the fish might want on a particular outing. But the rattle trap is one of the ones I like to drag on the bottom in shallow water. The next one is another extremely popular one. It's called the Cordell Spot. This is one here, a shad pattern, and this is a Jimmy Houston Excalibur spot, signature series spot. If you look at this bait closely, you'll notice it's quite beat up, and that's because I've used this bait many times over the years. It's one of my best baits. We all have our favorites, and this one has caught me so many fish. It's just a killer. This is one I like to rip out of weeds. The Spot is probably the slowest falling of these that we're going to be talking about today. So shallow water presentations, this is my go-to choice when I have those shallow weeds that I want to rip this through and over. Really great presentation for the weed bite, the Cordell Spot. Then the next one here is the Strike King Red Eye Shad. This has a little bit of a different profile where the bait falls a little faster, and it also tends to wiggle or wobble on the fall. So this one you can fish a little deeper water than the last two that we talked about. And I have a couple patterns here. There's a Sexy Shad pattern, Golden Shider pattern here. They make a larger 3/4 ounce as well. And I think you can get these in silent as well. Or at least you used to be able to, and perhaps you still can today. And there's a place for the silent ones, especially if you're fishing pressured water, or if there's a lipless crankbait bite that's going on and everyone's catching them on it. Sometimes that'll shut down, and then you throw a silent one and you can get them to hit it again. Other times in pressured waters, that silent one is my go-to preference, just depending on where I'm fishing. But the Red Eye Shad has a nice fall to it. You could fish it over a little bit of deeper water. You can jig this one. You can fish it through the weeds. This is a very versatile one because it's that medium one where it has some weight to it, but not too much where you can't do some of the shallow presentations with it as well. Good bait here. The next one that I really like is the Rapala Rip and Wrap. And it comes in a variety of sizes and colors. And when they first came out with the bait, most people don't know this, they had a silent one. Today, you can't find a silent one. I can't even find a silent one on eBay. But if someone's out there and they have a silent Rip and Wrap, please contact me, message me or comment in the video, because I would be very interested to buy it from you if you're willing to sell. This silent one is a killer bait. Not to say that these aren't. The ones that have rattles are killers as well. This is the bait that I like to use when I'm jigging the bait. When I want to lift it off the bottom and let it fall back down. Or even the ripping. The ripping works well with this bait also. It gets down fast, and it's really a good bait in those deeper water presentations. I fish it similarly to the way I would fish a blade bait in a lot of cases. The fifth bait is another bait that is better for getting down to deeper water, and it's the Jackal TN70 and the Jackal TN60. It's just a little smaller than the 70. This is a really good bait. Another one that I really like to use that ripping technique where I'll let it fall to the bottom, rip it forward. Just all I'm doing is snapping my rod sideways, ripping it forward, catching up on the line. This is my favorite bait for doing that. It also works well jigging, snapping up straight up. You can stroke it like you would stroke a jig, or just fish it like a jig as well. Another great presentation for that. Comes in at some different sizes. It's 3/4 ounce, gets down there pretty quickly, and I believe it's a 1/2 ounce. It has a profile where it falls quickly as well. So another deep water presentation is what I like for these particular lipless crankbaits. Now there's one that's kind of new to the scene here. This is called the Berkeley Jack. And these are 3/4 ounce baits. So but they're about the size of a 1/2 ounce lipless. So they're very similar to a 1/2 ounce rattle trap, for example, in size, but they're 3/4 of an ounce. So what I like about these is they're very well balanced. They'll go down, they get down quickly, so you can do the fast retrieves, that erratic retrieve that I like, in deeper weeds with this because it gets down faster. This is a nice versatile bait. I haven't caught any on it yet because I haven't fished for fish with it yet. I only experimented with it by testing it out. But I'm telling you, I'm going to catch fish on this bait because it'll get me down to where I need it to go. And when I need to get a little bit deeper, where the Cordell spot or the Bill Lewis rattle trap can't quite reach. So, and then I could also jig this. This is kind of one of those in-between baits where I can do a little bit of everything with it because of the way it's set up. And I look forward to fishing it. They also come with some really nice finishes like these here. Well, that's it. One of the most versatile baits you'll ever fish with, the lipless crankbait, and it'll work 4 seasons of the year. Fall, you can catch fish even in the winter on these baits. Certainly, spring and summer are excellent times to fish it as well. You gotta have these in your box if you're a bass fisherman because when this bite is on, there's nothing that beats it, and it's a lot of fun to fish. I hope you liked the video. I hope you got something out of it. Please comment and share your thoughts about what you thought about this video. What lipless crankbaits do you like to use, and do you fish these regularly? Let me know some of your experience with it. Please consider liking the video and subscribing to my channel. Everyone who watches, you're deeply appreciated. And if you'd like to see a springtime lipless crankbait video, take a look at this one right here. Till next time, be safe out there. Hope to see you on the water. And as always, may God bless your fishing endeavors.